this is counting down. You guys are good to start whenever, and you can trim the fat later.
What about her face? It's not centered.
Am I chopped?
She should go back there.
There we go.
Awesome.
That's centered.
Yay, thank you.
Perfect.
Okay.
You guys, I think are good. And then the
Okay.
mics, you can hold them or sit them.
Oh.
They didn't come with stands.
Will
but
it
they're-
project if I leave it right here?
Yeah.
Do you think? Or okay.
They should be fine.
Okay.
Cool.
So we're ready?
Thank you.
I'm gonna flip your sign over to recording in process. So
Okay,
we're ready and
cool.
going. And I will come by with your adapter.
Sir, her light is red,
gotta
hers is
fix
green.
mine.
Does that make a difference?
Yes.
Oh, thank you
If
for
you tap the
noticing
top,
that.
it'll mute the mic. So if the mic is red, you're muted. Just tap the red and
Okay.
then it'll turn back to green.
Perfect.
Thank
Thanks.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Oh my gosh.
Ooh, that would have been a situation. But I'm so loud, it
Ooh, I've
wouldn't
been
have
so
been a
hurt.
situation.
Okay. Alrighty, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Life After Infidelity. And I am your host and favorite affair recovery coach, Briana Latrice. And as you all know, because you've probably been seeing me post content, I am at the Podcast Summit 2024 in Atlanta. And I am so excited. And, I put as a goal that I was going to interview 10 people. So I got one already out the way, y'all. Actually got two lined up. So I'm super excited about that. And just let me say, she asked a question and she talked about the work that she does in infidelity, right? And I was just immediately like, okay, I got to connect with her. And then everybody started texting me saying, you got to connect with her, you got to connect with her. So I darted across the stage and tried to find her. And so I am super excited to bring up someone that I just met at the Podcast Summit, you guys. Miss Danielle. Look, I didn't even get her last name. So Miss
Cut it forward.
Danielle, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you. First of all, thank you for just being bold enough to walk up to a perfect stranger and be willing to exchange a moment.
Yeah.
This is exciting for me because podcasting is something that I've wanted to get into personally to support women.
Okay.
So this is a different avenue, and meeting you, I'm like, people are out here doing this work. I'm really excited to talk to you and your audience.
Yeah, exactly. That's the thing. Like, when I talk about infidelity, one of the things that I found is that there's so many people who don't look like us. So the fact that I saw a Black woman and then you said that your husband also does the work, I'm super excited about that because I've had a lot of guest couples come on the podcast, but they don't look like us, right? And so when I heard you share that, I was super duper excited to do that. So let's just jump into it because a lot of the times our stories are what kind of creates like this purpose-driven life that we create, right? So my story is, yes, I was cheated on in my marriage, and I didn't end up staying. I tried to make it work, but I didn't. So kind of just tell me, because you also shared that you and your husband do this work together, and you guys work with couples.
Yes.
So kind of tell me a little bit about the backstory of how you guys created the space that you have.
Our backstory is very different. I'll tell you that.
Okay.
First of all, we've been working with couples for about 15 years under the brand Couples Academy. And most of our couples have experienced some form of trauma, some form of infidelity, and they're in crisis when they come to us. But they often will ask us, have we experienced infidelity? And we have not. And
Yeah, that's what I asked your husband. I
we
was
have
like,
not.
so, because he was like, is that your story? I was like,
No.
absolutely.
And here's the cool thing about it is that people go to people who don't have what they want. That's what typically people do, right?
Yeah.
They don't know. They're not a rule one. A rule one is somebody who has been where you are and is going or who has gone where you want to be.
Yeah.
Right. And so they're not the rule one. And so it gets really difficult when it comes to talking to people who actually have experienced the pain that you've experienced. And so there's a certain energy that comes with it. What we realized is that there was only a handful of grown-ups in the room that we were in. And what I mean by that is there's not a lot of people who haven't experienced infidelity. You would be surprised how common it is. And people are surprised by that. They think, I'm going to get married. It's going to be till death do us part. And then you realize marriage is real. Marriage hurts. There's a lot of pain involved. It's frustrating. It's difficult. And I'm probably not going to make it. And then infidelity comes in as well, right? And so there's all these things that we're up against. People think that infidelity is some kind of abnormality, and it's pretty much the norm at this point. So when we realized that we were the grown-ups in the room, actually we were the ones that maybe we faced the possibility of infidelity. We thought about it, or we were going in that direction, but we got all the pieces in place to make that not happen. We were like, hold up, we're the adults. Let's show people how to avoid, and those who have experienced it, let's help them put all the pieces back together. So that's how it came out for us, because we have not experienced infidelity, but most of our clients have.
Yeah, yeah. So I guess so when you guys started doing the work, you just, like you said, you were always in the room and you would just hear like everybody have those stories of infidelity. And then were they coming to you all asking like, well, how did y'all, or how do y'all continue to cultivate such a healthy marriage?
It's funny because it evolved. Couples Academy was kind of like a community program where we would get together with couples and hang out and have fun. And we realized, you know what, happy couples don't need to be happier. They're already happy. I found myself sitting around dining room tables talking about real issues and talking about the traumatic things that actually happen in marriages that we don't talk about. And so we were like, you know what, we actually did become marriage and family coaches to fix our own marriage. That's really where it started. We did that for us.
I love that.
But we're actually using it to help people at our kitchen table. So it really did evolve. It wasn't something that we planned to do. We were giving this service because we love people and we wanted to connect. And we just found that we had a niche. We spoke a lot about infidelity and infidelity recovery, and the people started coming.
So when we talk about infidelity and like the couples that you are seeing, like what is kind of one of those hot topics that couples who have experienced infidelity, like what is that dying question that they always come to you or start off with?
Why?
Mm.
Why?
Yeah.
That is the biggest question that people ask. They want to understand, what did they do wrong? Like, how did I miss this? Why couldn't you tell me that you were missing something that made you step out? Is it me? They want to know the answers to that. And I think it's a struggle because oftentimes the unfaithful partner does not know why, because they're not connected to themselves either, right? We all have
said a
trauma.
whole word right
Okay.
there.
We all have trauma. We don't want to acknowledge it all the time, but all of us come to every relationship with a bunch of baggage. And if we don't deal with it, then it comes out in the marriage. And so it's never the offended partner who had anything to do with it. It's always the person that was unfaithful, but they may not know what the why is.
Yep.
So trying to get the answer to that question is really frustrating, but that's the biggest one.
Yeah. And I love that because that is like a lot of us who experience infidelity, we internalize, right?
Yes.
And we automatically go to, it was me and it's something about me. And then that's why a lot of us start to have insecurities post infidelity, right? Because we're internalizing that. And so what do you kind of tell those people? Like, because we hear the surface level things of it's not you, it's not your fault, they're stepping out, has nothing to do with you. But what is it that you and your husband kind of help them to navigate, and what do y'all share with them when they do say, why, what did I do?
So the first thing that I want to kind of take it back, because that's part of the problem, is that we're looking at the couple as a whole, right?
Ooh, okay.
One of the biggest things that we do is we divide the couples and help them focus on their own individual recovery.
Okay. So does your husband take the men and then you take the women?
Now that's exactly how it goes.
Oh, okay, that's good.
The thing, well, we have our practice has 15 practitioners, so it's
Okay.
not just us doing it at this point. But yes, there was a time when Hassani and I did it together, but now I specifically work with the wives and he works with couples. So there's the difference
are
there.
y'all licensed therapists?
We're not. We're marriage
Okay.
coaches.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay. When you said practitioner, I wanted to clarify like what exactly. Okay. So
Yeah.
you guys are coaches.
Yes,
Okay.
and we do have some licensed therapists actually on our team, but we're not. And it's interesting that we have actually counseled counselors who are licensed. A lot of people come to us because they've worked with many counselors, and they kind of felt like, I'm on a couch just sharing my opinions, and I really need somebody to coach me through this and tell me what to do.
Yeah.
So there's the difference there. But we separate the couple, and we help them understand that even though you were betrayed, there's some work that you need to do. As the betrayer, you need to look at you and figure out what's going on that made you do this. Why did you make these choices? So we divide the couple.
Okay.
And when we are able to separate them in that way, we can help them understand, what parts they played and help them own it. Because I'll tell you something, one of the biggest things to do is to get the betrayed person to acknowledge they did anything wrong.
Yes.
I know that hurts
Oh my
to
God,
say.
it's so hard.
I know that hurts to say. but
Because
it's
they
true.
think that they haven't done anything
Yeah.
wrong. You know what I'm saying? Like, and I think that that's I was having a conversation with a friend last week, and she's in a marriage and it's struggling, right? And she asked me a question about something Pat, in my marriage, and I said anytime like in my marriage or even like when I'm dating now, when the relationship ends, I take their criticism and I reflect
That's
on it.
hard. Not
Yeah.
everybody does that,
And
honey.
that's exactly what she said. She
Yeah.
was like, not everybody does that. And I said, I understand it. I said, because a lot of us can't sit um with criticism, because we automatically internalize that. And I said, and I've learned that I don't internalize that criticism, but I allow it to make me better.
Yeah.
Because there's something that's consistent amongst relationships that don't work out for me that these people are saying, and that's a pattern that I need to go and fix, right? So that when I get into my next relationship, I'm doing it a little bit better, or I'm more so aware of it so that I can change it. And I love what you say about how you guys separate other couples, because I get a lot of people that reach out to me and ask me, do I do group coaching, right? Or couples coaching? And I'm like, no. And a lot of the times, especially when I'm working with women who are wanting to rebuild trust in their relationships, I tell them, hey, it's important that your partner also find somebody, because y'all both need to work on yourselves, because like you said, I'm going to help you get to the root of yours. And then if your partner isn't growing himself or herself, then it's not going to be, you know what I'm saying? There's still going to be friction. You're going to grow
Yes,
apart.
yes.
You're going to grow apart. Like, it's inevitable as you start to evolve yourself if the other person isn't.
Absolutely.
And so I really love what you're talking about it's different from the betrayed and the betrayer. And I guess let's kind of talk about that. Let's start with the betrayed, because you mentioned that it's so hard for them to even admit that they've done just the inkling of anything wrong.
Right.
So what's that process like when you're starting with the
It's
betrayed?
hard. It's hard, Briana.
Yeah.
Because you want to come with a certain level of sensitivity, right? They're in pain. And the way we do it is we do last chance weekends. And so we have couples come for group intensives at our home. We have a guest house, and we do a whole thing at our retreat center.
Okay.
And so you might have like 15 couples. And so we'll split the couples up. You'll have a group full of women, and sometimes there is the betrayed in there and the betrayer. So that's energy. But when we get along with the person that's been betrayed, who is sobbing in pain, they just found out their world has come crashing down, it's been a bomb, and they're just trying to grapple to put the pieces together. And then you have to help them put a circle around their own 2 feet and acknowledge the part that they played. It's very difficult, but we kind of take it incrementally, right? First there's the full disclosure, where they actually get to hear exactly what happened in the affair. And once that comes out, when the offending partner discloses their whys, and then the spouse has to hear their whys, now there's some things for you to focus on, right? It's like, I was being neglected, I felt alone, you were angry with me, we were disconnected, you were busy getting your doctorate. There's all these reasons that come out that are not the reason. It's not the reason, okay?
Yes.
No, it can never be the reason why somebody would make a decision like that. However, these were issues in the relationship that needed to be worked on.
Yep.
And so that's what we're doing. We're not saying, hey, this is the reason why your spouse cheated on you. We're saying, let's figure out all the issues. Let's figure out where all the holes were in the relationship, and let's deal with those things. So it is a delicate process to kind of walk them through and help them acknowledge some spaces where they were missing it.
That's good. I love that. And so, what is it like energetically when they hear, like, hey, here are some of the reasons why I stepped out? And everything that I'm hearing you say, the common thread between that sounds like it's the connection. In some type of way or some type of form, there was a connection that was broken that then allowed for that commitment to be broken. That's kind of one of the things that I always say, is that you can always pinpoint sometimes the start of infidelity, and it's because normally when the connection is lost, the commitment is next to follow. So how do the betrayed receive that when the betrayer says, hey, here's the reason why I stepped out?
I mean, first of all, I think that is true for some, right? That there's a connection loss, and that's the truth for a lot of people. But there are some people that just actually had some real issues that they brought into the marriage. And truth be told, a lot of times the betrayed partner saw it. They knew it before they got married. They just thought they could change the person, or that they would grow out of it or get through it. And they don't, because if they don't do any work to improve, then there's no change that's going to come.
Exactly.
But there are some people that have some sexual addictions. There are some people that have never seen or had an image of a fully faithful and committed relationships. So they don't know what that looks like. They saw their father cheat, their grandfather cheat, everybody, uncle cheating. So that's the way that they learned to be, right?
Yeah.
But in the cases where there was a brokenness that took place in the relationship, I think that's probably some of the most devastating hurt, where they were blown away and they just were sideswiped. They never saw this coming. Is probably the most devastating cases. But then there's those that are like, you know what, I knew he was like this, and so this is no surprise to me. I just don't know why you keep lying. Like, I could deal with the infidelity. I could deal with all the women. I've heard this a million times. I could deal with all the women. I could deal with your kinkiness in the bedroom, all the stuff like that. It's just the lying that I can't deal with. So it's hard to say how one person takes it over the other, because there's a gazillion types of affairs that take place from people who decided, hey, I want to be in a throuple, you know, and let's try that for a while and see if we like that. And one person steps out unbeknownst to the other person. That's infidelity in their case, right? So it's not about that you stepped out. It's just that you didn't tell me. You know what I'm saying? And so it really depends on the couple and the situation, how they respond. Yeah.
I love what you said too, just about there's always something deeper, right? Like, sometimes what we hear, like the reasons why, a lot of times that's the surface level to that, because like you said, we saw it, maybe someone noticed it and you just turned your head to it, or you ignored it, or you thought, hey, okay, I can fix them, I can change them. And I know for women it's a lot of, okay, if I love them harder, then they'll want to change their behavior, right?
Yes.
So kind of talk about that in a deeper level, because like you said, there's always something deeper, so deeper reason as to why. And so what are some of those deep rooted reasons why people tend to think that they can change other people, or they even ignore the signs?
A lot of it comes from their pathology, to be honest. You know, it's the root of who they are. Our personalities are shaped by the time we're 7 years old, right? And so at some point we learned how to cover for mom or cover for dad. And so we take that into our relationships. And so part of my process working with women is to help them unearth all of those traumas and those hurts that they're carrying around. And that's really where it starts, because they think it's the person. They think it's because of what you did is why this is what I'm going through. And this is one of the hardest things to help women understand, or anyone to understand really, is that you really are the sum culmination of your own choices, even the things that happen to you. And that's a spiritual thing, which is based in spiritual law that people don't really understand. And so it's like you actually systematically chose this for your life. Look at the track record. You've been choosing this with every person. No wonder how all your partners are acting or behave like your father. Where does that come from? Why is it that, you know, you were abused by him, you were abused by your boyfriend when you were in high school, you were abused by your husband?
Exactly.
Why is it that your father was a thief and now your boyfriend stole from you and then your husband robbed you blind? Like, you have to actually look at your history and figure out what you're anchored to. And that's the key. What are you anchored to? It's just like the Bag Lady, Erykah Badu's song, Bag Lady, Bag Lady. Well, we walk around with bags and they're invisible because they're spiritual baggage that we're carrying, self-worth issues, you know, or low self-worth issues, shame, guilt, anger, resentment. All these negative emotions weigh us down and actually attract more of the same. And if we could get that message out to people, if they understood how powerful and magnetic our negative and positive emotions are, we would get busy unearthing that stuff and releasing it. And that's part of my process.
So there's only 4, but
Oh God.
I know.
Look, you
And
had
guess
the
what? Me
onion.
too. Me too. I'm working on me still. Okay, because we don't quit this game. We continue to do the work. We don't even know how many layers deep it goes. Like as soon as we think we hit the core, we find another layer, like another layer and another. Like, oh my God. Actually, I was talking to a lady the other day, and she had been so tough the entire time and acting like nothing was wrong, and she had gone through so much therapy, and I've done this and I've done that and I've done this and I've done that, right? And so we started talking about her kids. Check this out. Going back to what we just said, we started talking about her kids. And this woman was abandoned by her father, who was in the pornography game. He left, her mother left. Well, she in turn left her children when they were little. They were like in elementary school, moved to California, started living a whole life. And now she is in so much regret. When we started talking about the children, the floodgates opened up. The whole time she was so tough and had it all together, and we were trying to figure out, what makes this lady tick, because I got nothing, like nothing affects you.
Yeah.
Until we hit that soft spot, which was the kids. So we keep doing this work and it'll come to the surface. You just got to keep doing the work.
Yeah. Jesus. So, okay, here's why I'm excited. Because I talk to a lot of people, right? And when I'm talking to people, I can always tell people who are actually actively doing the work versus people who are, just getting some good quotes offline and stuff like that to really talk about healing. And like I can tell just by our conversation, like you are really rooted into this work and you are helping people to evolve and become better people. So one of my podcast episodes is called I Married My Father. And the reason why it's called I Married My Father, get this beautiful story actually. So I left my husband, and the year after I left my husband, I met my dad for the very first time. And when I was sitting across the table from my dad for the very first time, he was the spitting image of my ex-husband.
No,
From
no
appearance
way.
to how he shows up in relationships. He's still cheating on his wife to this day. Everything that I had attracted me in my husband was my daddy. But the reason why, because when I started my healing journey, right, I grew up Pentecostal. I'm the only child, went to school, right, did all the things, finished college in 4 years, had a job lined up for me before I walked across the stage to get my degree, was a virgin when I got with my ex-husband.
Whoa.
So I did all of the
All
things,
the
right?
things.
So here's how I grew up. I don't have daddy issues. Why? Because I'm not promiscuous. Because I've accepted that my daddy is not in my life, right? But come to find out, when I started this journey of going through infidelity, my coach made me realize, girl, you do got daddy issues. And my core issue was rejection. So that is why in my relationship with my husband, mind you, the first time I found out, and I'm just sharing a little bit of my story because we just met.
Yes.
The first time I found out that my ex-husband was cheating, I made myself stop at woman 6. Like I made myself stop at woman 6. 2 days later, I went back searching for more, found out about 4 more women. And like clockwork, every 6 months for 5 years, I would find out about another woman.
Wow. Oh my
And I
God.
still stayed
Wow.
because I had the belief that if I love him harder, well, hold on, this is the surface belief. I had the surface belief that if I loved him harder, then he would see me, acknowledge me, and love me the way that I love him. But really what my core wound was rejection, because my dad walked away from me, and I couldn't have another man in my life walk away from me. So I'm going to love harder, and I'm going to love deeper, and I'm going to love stronger, even if it means giving up who I am. And so I really love what you're saying about there's always a core wound. And I always tell my clients, just because the trauma is present doesn't mean the root issue is discovered.
Right.
And my job is to help you understand what that root issue is. I had a client, once we got deeper, she was on her second marriage that was ending in infidelity. Well, then we found out that hers was daddy trauma, right? Her daddy emotionally abused her growing up. And so what she thought love was what she sought in relationships, right? So we had to understand that's not what love is. Another client, she had been, overweight her entire life, early 20s, lost weight, attracted a partner, right? And so she stayed with this person longer than she should have because she had this belief that she wasn't attractive. This was the first person who ever showed her any attention.
Right.
And so she had this belief in her mind that, and because he was telling her, ain't nobody else gonna want you, I'm the only one that came to you. And so she had rooted issues of insecurity. And so I love what you're saying about how we have to always go deeper. So like we come to them with the surface level stuff of like, yeah, he cheated on you, yeah, blah, 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 she cheated on you. But then we get down to the root level of that. And so I kind of want to talk to you, or maybe let's give some basic tips, right? For people who are dealing with infidelity and who are trying to go through this and they don't even know where to start, because we're talking about root issues, but kind of talk to them about where did they even start, because they don't even know.
Yeah. So, first of all, you said so many good things, and I'm so happy for your audience that they have you to hear you speak about those things, those attachments that we have. You said daddy issues, but you never met your daddy. And so
Ain't that crazy?
that's
That's the
crazy.
crazy part. I never met my dad. And when you said that spiritually, right? It's like you don't even
It
have
is
to know.
spiritual.
A lot of times we think that the person has to be in our life, which is why we attract that.
Yes.
No, it
No,
doesn't.
no.
Spiritually, energetically, like the man
Yes.
is still in my
See, because you
genes.
know that because that apostolic, you
Yeah.
understand those soul ties, and spiritually,
Yep.
that is your lineage. And so it's something that you have to break those negative soul ties, and people don't understand that.
Yeah.
But when you said that, that really was a big wow for a lot of people, I think. And then the other thing that stood out to me is, the fact that you stayed.
Yeah.
So many women stay, and people judge women for staying. They're like, why? Well, you must want this because you stuck around and you stayed. And the fact
Yep.
is that you can't judge another woman's measure of grace. You just can't.
Yeah.
You might have way more a measure of grace than the next woman who they didn't hear from God that it's time to go. Maybe they were still in an assignment to pray. Maybe it just wasn't time, but for some reason, some why, you're still there. But when the grace is out, ain't nothing you can do to keep that woman there.
Not one thing.
Not one thing.
At
And let me
all.
tell you something. You had the grace when you met the Joker, okay? You had the grace. But what
Yep.
happened was you overlooked it. The umbrella of grace was fully open, and you saw all the issues and all the things, and you said, I'll fix that. I'll pray on that. I'll anoint that. I'll keep it going. And you went on with it.
Yep.
And your
Look, because
grace.
one of the books I got was
Yeah.
The Power of the Praying Wife.
Right.
And honey, I read that book
Me
about
too.
4 or 5
Me
times.
too.
And I was just, oh my, I
Right.
plead the blood. This
But
is
guess
a
what?
spirit.
You can't control nobody because that'd be witchcraft, right? So after a while, your grace runs out, the umbrella shuts down, and you're out the door. So that was really powerful. So thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
But there is a process. When people come to us, they're coming to us in all different states of mind. And the first thing that we want to do is make sure that the couple is on board. It doesn't take both of you to turn your marriage around. I mean, we work
Okay, I
with
like
couples
that.
all around the world. I mean, we have saved thousands and thousands of marriages. And so it really does take one person to focus on themselves and start to make changes to save some marriages. Okay. And
Yeah.
I say some because the outlier is always the other partner. What are they willing to do? What changes are they willing to make? Even when they see you, who did step up to get some help, change. We always say, look in the mirror and look at you. If you start to change how you see things and how you do things, your entire world begins to change.
That's so true,
When you
yeah.
change the things that you look at, the things that you look at change, right? And so we tell people, listen, you change. You stop responding to those
Yeah.
reactions that you get from that person. You be the different person, and they'll start to look up and be like, there's something really different about this person. That's what happened with us, right? Because I was totally checked out. My husband will tell you that he was the bona fide verbal assassin. Okay, so he could cuss you up, out, and down,
hurt your feelings,
inside
all
and
of 'em.
outside, without even using a cuss word. That's how much of a wordsmith he was with his assassin skills.
Okay.
And so I was just checked out. I was not interested in anything he had to say or do. I was like, we're just gonna go half on babies, half on children, and that's that. And I don't know what got into him, but he might have heard a podcast or something,
Yeah.
and he decided to make changes. Now, I ain't gonna divulge my age, okay, but he was using cassette tapes at the time. Anyway, so he started putting the cassette tapes into the VCR. If y'all, I don't know how young your followers are, but VCR. And I was just like, I don't care what you do. I used to dress with a muumuu on, the rag on my head. I didn't care what you did. But he was consistent. And he started putting these tapes in that were talking about marriage repair and all these things. And I was like, whatever. A couple of weeks in, he was still doing it. I noticed he stopped being so critical and stopped attacking me verbally. I'm like, what's going on?
Yeah.
And after a while, Brianna, I actually looked up. I was like, wow, he's actually changing. Maybe I could change my little stank attitude
that.
and
Yep.
how I'm showing up. So it only takes one person to save some marriages, to
like that.
initiate it. But then there's those couples that actually come together and they know that they have messed up big and they are desperate to save it, because your marriage is more than just your relationship. Your marriage represents your finances, your community, the home that you own, assets, the children. That's your marriage. It covers everything, right? And so there's a lot more to lose than just the relationship between you and your spouse. And so couples come together desperate and willing to do whatever it takes. And that's when we take them through the process of infidelity recovery, which is our 3-day intensive. And it is intense, let me tell you.
Ooh, I can only
It is
imagine.
intense.
I love what you said too about changing yourself, because a lot of the times, and again, I'm talking to women because that's my audience, because a lot of the times women will come in to me just talking about, well, I'm trying to change him and blah 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 blah, and it's like,
Mm-mm.
sis,
Change you.
you using the wrong formula, right? You are using the wrong formula. Focus on yourself, and what's going to happen is either he's going to change for the better, or you guys are going to grow apart. And so I really love how you said, like, you just kept seeing it in your husband and the changes in him. And it makes me think about this. Can you maybe tell them a little bit about boundary setting? Because a lot of the times people confuse boundaries, right? The definition of boundaries, and they try to use boundaries as a way of control by giving ultimatums. But what you're talking about is changing yourself. But even in terms of, like, as they are creating these boundaries, making sure that it's not a control mechanism, what does that look like?
Okay. So first of all, be careful about ultimatums because you might get what you asked for. Okay. Because people always give an ultimatum. If you don't do this, I'm out. And then when they're out, you like, please come back. I've had clients that do that. But yeah, there is a healthy way to set boundaries where you're not being controlling over the other person, but you're actually controlling your boundaries for yourself. And that's really what we teach. It's okay for me to set my boundaries. And I have some crazy ones that I've set between me and my husband because they work for us. It's individual. But the way that you do that is, think about something that everybody can relate to: arguing, right?
Yeah.
Boundaries around arguing would mean, we're not going to scream at each other. We're not going to swear at each other and call each other curse words. That's a boundary that we're setting. Now, what if your spouse breaks that boundary? Is there anything you can do about it? No, there's not.
Really,
There's
no.
nothing you can do about it. However, you can still hold the boundary. Do you have to return his cusses with your cusses? And I think that's what happens, is that we set all these boundaries and rules and regulations for the relationship.
Yeah.
And when one person doesn't honor them, then we don't honor them, right? So that means you're not honoring your own self. So there is a way to go about setting boundaries that do not control. I think anytime you say to somebody, okay, after this, you no longer can do that, that's when people start to feel threatened, and you get a lot of rebellion. But when a couple comes together and they have a mindset of oneness and they actually want to move forward, then they're apt to set those boundaries together, and they'll be mutually beneficial boundaries that work for the couple, not just for the individual.
Yeah, that's really, really good. And I know we're winding down on time, but I want you to speak to the woman who is experiencing infidelity in her relationship, and she wants to stay, right? She wants to stay in the relationship. What would be the thing that you would tell her to start working on first, or to focus on, as she tries to repair her marriage?
I love the question.
Mm-hmm.
So, sis, the one that wants to stay, first of all, I support you in that effort. Okay? I support you in that effort, and don't let anybody tell you that you're wrong or shame you for that decision. However, you need to understand that you don't have control over what the other person does. Oftentimes we want guarantees. The only
Yeah.
guarantee you have is in yourself and what you choose to do. And so step one is to work on yourself. Many of us are walking around with a tremendous amount of developmental lag. And that means that we were stumped somewhere in our childhood, and we're still that little girl trying to seek approval from our husbands. And we need to recognize they are never going to be able to give you that approval, because they weren't designed to give you that approval. They're not going to be the ones to help you, because they are not the ones designed to help you. You were designed to be the helper, actually, right?
Yeah,
Which
yeah.
means that you got to also help yourself. And so get yourself into a great support community. Talk therapy is king. Talk therapy. You just need to be in a community where you can talk to your sister, call her up, let her know what's going on. And then don't forget about a good therapist. Get somebody who you can actually work out those emotional hangups and blocks that you have. Do that for 12 months, and you will see such a huge transformation in your life, how you feel. And the things that frustrate you about your spouse, suddenly you don't even notice them as much anymore.
Yeah.
They start to roll off your back like water off a duck's back. You begin to change.
Yeah.
And that's when your life begins to change.
Ooh, I love it. That is so good. I hope that anyone who has heard this conversation, and then who has just heard the tips that Danielle has just eloquently put out for you guys. I hope that you hone in and definitely take heed to what she is sharing, because yeah, this is like legit low-key a masterclass that we just did like in under 45 minutes, and I am so excited. And so before we get out of here, I know that you know talked about the retreats and everything that you do, so just kind of let people know where they can find you, how to connect with you if they're interested in working with you, and all the things.
Awesome. So our company is couplesacademy.org. You can find us there. Also, you can find me at Danny Pettiford, Coach Danny Pettiford. Sorry, Coach Danny Pettiford on IG. And after you go there, you'll find all of the links to everything we do. We're on YouTube. We're on every platform except for a couple, but we'll get there soon. So reach out.
All righty, that was great. You guys, I hope that you got a lot of value from this conversation. I know I definitely did. I am super excited. Again, my name is Briana Latrice. I am your favorite affair recovery coach. And like I always say, I come as one, but I stand for thousands who have experienced the ultimate betrayal of infidelity. And I am just reminding you to remove the shame of your decision to leave or stay after infidelity. Because whether you leave or stay, both decisions will be hard. And I am here to help you navigate your hard. I'll see you on the next episode. Bye.
I love that.
Yay, that was great. Okay, I don't know what we do next. What's his name?
Sir?
You're a great interviewer.
You think
You're
so?
really
Thank you.
good.
I was
Yes. Really good.
I was like,
No, you're
normally
good.
like I pray and stuff before an interview, but you know, like now just doing, I'm doing it. So I
Yeah.
was like, okay, God.
You're great with pulling